What should be done with the blood donated for donation?
If we are speaking as adults, the very fact of such an action is very, very questionable.
Is it true that Hollywood is mired in Satanism?
Where power is strong, where society is completely under control, yes, they won't give society this knowledge. Yes, it's magic, yes, it's witchcraft, but it works.
Does family karma exist?
All of humanity is interconnected. Everything that humanity does reflects on the entire planet as a whole.
Regarding Sai Baba, I would also really like to hear Anton's opinion.
It's his source of life. Yes, energy is being drained from you left and right. People periodically parasitize each other.
What do you think? Is it true that Hollywood is mired in Satanism? Stars, in order to become such, do things that are condemned by most people. Rituals. Bohemian Grove. Adrenaline.
Adrenaline. Yes, where would we be without our dear adrenaline? Well, in reality, the fact that people do injections with stem cells is, in principle, not much different. Essentially from this adrenochrome. That is, a fetus? Yes. Stem cells are extracted from it and an injection is made to another adult person. What is this? And this is medicine. It's not even some esoteric conspiratorial statements. This is medicine. You can just go to a clinic, yes, and in principle, they can prescribe you such a method of treatment. If you have enough money, please go and buy it.
But not Satanism, after all, right?
And who is Satan? It's people doing this to each other, moreover. Well, who is Satan there?
Well, they just use different definitions.
Of course, you can use all sorts of terrible words, but if you are not a hypocritical person, but an observant one, it suddenly turns out that, in principle, this is accessible to anyone. But again, the question is, why do they do it? Why do they perform these rituals? Why? For example, in India, are rituals still performed, and it's considered the norm? Why are rituals almost forbidden in secular society? You will be condemned by all means. Why do all people who have power, who have money, perform these rituals? Why?
Again, it depends on what is called rituals, because for some, even such an action might already be considered something satanic. No? While for others, such rites as in India are accepted. For them, it's a normal action. They probably don't even consider it a rite. The environment in which they live their entire lives from generation to generation.
It's just that in India, the level of control is still low. It's just that it's a state where, in general, they don't care much about what people are doing. I lived there, I observed all of this. Some communities might clash and harm each other. I don't care.
Well, what is your overall view on such rites and rituals?
Well, they definitely work. Otherwise, what's the point of doing them? Lyudmila is in power. It definitely doesn't work.
But there will be consequences.
There will be excellent consequences. Again, do you think they're all suicidal there or something? Do you think a person knowledgeable in the subject would perform a ritual if the consequences were bad? Yes, the consequences are good. That's why all of this has been banned for you. That's why no one teaches you this, because the consequences are actually normal. Yes, those who were placed on the sacrificial stone, for them, the consequences are dire. But for the one who placed them, everything is fine. Yes, it's magic. Yes, it's witchcraft, but it works. And when a person cannot, for various reasons, practice independently, cannot train, cannot exercise, well, is lazy. For example, to do this, they can turn to magic, to ritual magic. And then the forces that manifest during the ritual will do these things for them. But these forces do not manifest for free. Their manifestation needs to be paid for. Mostly, the sacrifices that fall into these rituals pay as victims.
All right. What do you think yourself? Hollywood? Here's a specific question about Hollywood. Is it mired in these rituals? Are these rituals used there or not? Are rituals used in Hollywood? What do you think?
Of course, they are used, but they are not only used in Hollywood, they are also used in government systems of control and management. They are used in news broadcasts. They are used in various show programs. Used, everything is used. And periodically, these methods of application are uncovered. They publish it. People look at it. Oh, scoundrel, scoundrel. and then go watch TV in the evening.
And then they go and do it themselves.
No, they don't do it themselves. There's no place for that. In the modern world, it's prohibited, at least among those who are at a high level of development. A high level of state governance development. In third world countries, in countries where there is no power and authority, there basically shamans perform various rituals. All of that is still present. Where power is strong, where society is completely under control, yes, they won't give society this knowledge. And those who try, they will be quickly pacified.
And what do you think if we had the opportunity to perform these rituals, if we had this, let's say,
How would you then manage these people? These people would get out of control. I have attended these rituals. I know how they work. Simply, when I announced to everyone, I said, guys, I don't perform rituals. And I slightly protected myself in this way. But the rituals work. And none of this, like God will punish him. Yes, why didn't he punish him then when he performed that ritual? No, because if you know how it works, if you know how these mechanisms are arranged, then you only get a positive effect. Hollywood is mired in debauchery. Why? Because it was the generator of this debauchery, and they, couldn't restrain themselves. Why is this happening? Because there is such a demand in society. You can look on YouTube right now, which videos quickly gain views, where there's dirt, where there's some filth, where there's some hardcore stuff. Those are the videos that gain views. Which streams gain views? They are also called trash streams. The audience immediately grows exponentially. That's the kind of society we have.
It turns out that society creates all this, it creates the demand.
And those who are not afraid to make an offer do so and immediately reach very high levels of financial prosperity. The other thing is that when you start trading in this, the likelihood of not falling under its influence and striving for it increases. And in the end, by giving bread and circuses as it used to be to people, you ultimately fall under the passions yourself. And then there is no way out.
On November 19th, I am doing the fire pillar practice. Then I cleanse the space with a bell, big one. Then I immediately recite my personal mantra and focus on the heart. After that, I looked at my energy through my fingers for a while. Everything is fine. I go out into the yard to work. I fall from the ladder. I try to hold on to the metal fence. In the end, I'm on the ground with cut fingers, skin sliced to the bone. Question: is this an excessive practice and the wounds are assigned to stop because the body cannot handle such a flow of energy? Or is it something I rejected at some point? Help me understand. Respectfully, Lyudmila.
Here's the situation. If this person practiced the fire pillar with me personally, then they at least have the opportunity to ask me personally and figure out this situation. If this is a person who has not practiced with me personally, I have not yet shown the fire pillar practices. The fire pillar practices, they will only be shown in January 2025. That means they are not yet available on the internet. Therefore, what Lyudmila practiced was most likely preparatory practices, introductory practices, partial practices. I periodically show some of these practices at our meetings and events, so she did not fully perform this technique. And what she did perform, yes, it could have accelerated her energy. But if a person does not know how to live with fast energy, with powerful energy, they can harm themselves. Moreover, there is a formula at work here. The faster you accelerate your energy, the faster you receive the consequences of your meow actions, leading to slowing down. Every time a person commits acts that I call foolishness, their energy sharply slows down. His physicality, psyche, and energy see that for some causal reasons, the energy sharply slows down, then internal fuss begins, agitation starts, and when a person fusses, they injure themselves. That is to say, such processes have often occurred with me and other practitioners That's why I say that it's better. Not to fuss, don't do it, it's better. Not to twitch, it's better not to make sudden movements. And here what happens, the person took part of the practices, but did not complete the transformation. I suspect that there was an aspect of fussing, twitching, maybe she was in a hurry, lost that balance, calmness, flow, started to tense up, twitch, and immediately got injured. Therefore, one needs to be more calm, peaceful, harmonious, if we are already engaging in such a level of practice. I didn't show the practical energy work at the beginning for no reason. There it is absolutely safe. You can even go into these practices with foreign objects in the body. Then a more serious process is shedding the cocoon. And here, there's no need to worry about how to live without a cocoon, right, guys? Children, newborns, live perfectly well without a cocoon, and everything is fine with them. But these are already more serious practices for shedding the cocoon. There are practices upcoming. This is the fiery pillar. I haven't shown them yet. We will only be doing this in January 2025. That's very soon. So, carefully, calmly, harmoniously, without fuss, slowly we prepare, get used to these states, get used to these powers, without flooring the gas pedal. Carefully, we move in transforming ourselves into this state, and then there will be no injuries.
Is this somehow related specifically to practice? For example, if a person is constantly getting injured, bumping into things, something happens to them. That is, some kind of impact on their physical body. A girl also writes, I once fell down the stairs when I took the wrong job, didn't listen, and a year later realized I was in the wrong place and quit. I don't know what he will say, but it's not necessary to link every event to practices.
So, you're asking me now if all relates to practices, and not everything is related to practices.
So is it all or not?
Of course, our life is absolutely multifaceted. There are countless situations. There's a whole cartload of causality. No book has yet described all causality. That's why I say stop juggling with books. Go develop yourself your extrasensory perception. It will be much easier to understand how this reality works, but practices for boosting energy require mental stability, require the ability to stay in that state. You can draw such an analogy. Now imagine a person who lives exclusively on those levels of hormonal background to which they are accustomed. Well, they live and that's it. And then suddenly, for some reason, let's say he took some medicinal substances, gave himself an adrenaline shot, drank 10 liters, chased it with energy drinks and 5 cups of coffee. That is, he sharply increased for himself this chemical background, energetic, not energetic, material chemical background, hormonal background. So what? Will he be able to sit in this state, meditate, for example, or calmly walk in nature, sit and fish? No, he will be all jittery because he doesn't know how to be in such a crazy state. It's the same here. When a person's energy level suddenly increases, it needs to be realized at some point. You need to interact with it somehow. You just ask yourself, why do you need so much energy? For what purpose? And in most cases, when I bluntly ask a person, I say, well, okay, you came to practice, you claim to, for example, the same fiery pillar, I used to personally teach these practices. But now we are moving on to group work. I ask, why do you need this? What are you going to do with it? Well, just so that everything is good. I say, well, everything being good, your life is in your hands. The way you wave your hands now, that's how it will be. I say, if you swing your hands now towards the wall with full force, there's a lot of strength, but the wall is solid, you could get hurt.
So you need to have some initial intention to manage it wisely.
What you do, where you direct it all, how you will use it. It's the same as saying, I want money, a bag of money was dumped on you. Oh, great, now I'll sleep on it. Well,
Let's move on to the next question. Christina writes, what practices reflected in practical energy work can help maintain beauty and youth? If this isn't covered in the first course, please tell us about it as well. Thank you.
In the first course, there are exercises that provide similar effects. It's just that there isn't a method on how to use these exercises for such effects. But I can, in principle, explain there are several practices. This is the flow of black dots, black crystals in the consciousness. It's a long story to explain where they come from. Through your physical body from the first to the seventh, it works like sandblasting, like a process of knocking out everything that is constraining, tense, or damaged within you. In other words, it cleanses you like cleaning agents. The second aspect is the essential mastery of your sexual energy, the ability to redistribute it and direct it towards your own body, rather than just using this energy to pay for an orgasm, which is essentially a mental pleasure. So the ability to redistribute your sexual energy is the second course. This is transcendental speed. Next, the ability to find 12 centers in the joints, to open and fill them with streams of consciousness. This is the first course. Next, what else is there?
Regeneration, if it's the body cell renewal.
All of this is automatically activated together. What enhances regeneration? What strongly encourages the physical body to regenerate? This is the fourth gate, the stream of consciousness through the fourth gate, which enters the body and creates a very strong motivation for the physical body to quickly start regenerating. That is mastery of the fourth gates. Well, surely there was something else. It's just that right now I'm more focused on the video. Yes, and it's clearly not about taxation.
But still, it's great to start with the first course, right? And already in the first course, there are practices with the help of pairs.
In the first course, there is practically everything except sexual techniques. Techniques for managing sexual energy. I showed that in the second course. And so by doing this conglomerate of exercises, without getting distracted by other exercises, and everything will start to rejuvenate. We won't have any other options left.
So let's move on to the next question. Good afternoon, Anton. Does family karma exist? Or is it just our personal karma over us? The influence of the family on a person, like that of an egregore, should theoretically be present. But if there are only a couple of people in the family, and the rest have passed away, and is there an influence? Is it worth working on it somehow? Currently, there are many family practices and stories about the influence of ancestry on the internet. Is there any point in delving into all this and engaging with it? And what energetic relationships between generations exist from the perspective of extrasensory perception? Is there any point in memorial services? Many questions. Let's go in order. Does family karma exist?
Do you understand what the thing is? It's not so easy to answer this question. Briefly, if we take the understandings of ourselves exclusively at the material level, that is, genetically, whether there is material or not, whether it was used or not, then we cannot attach energy to this because at the energy level, we are all one. And so, where does my karma end and someone else's karma begin if we are all one? How do we draw this line? Therefore, all of humanity is definitely interconnected. Everything that humanity does, all its actions and deeds that lead to the constriction and compression of energy, all of it reflects on the entire planet as a whole. Undoubtedly, all of humanity is now moving towards spasm, constriction, and loss of vitality. All of humanity, it doesn't matter at all who is whose genetic material, it doesn't matter now. It is certain that there are specific connections between relatives, of course, but if we only limit ourselves to connections with our relatives globally, we will hardly be able to change anything. Yes, we might improve relationships with our relatives, well, or we might end up completely falling out with them. And that's it. But as a person, as a living being, as part of humanity, little will change. Therefore, if we question karma, if we question whether or not it's worth working on it, it's worth working here and now with our energy. That is, we carry the consequences of the activities of all humanity. All people carry the consequences of the activities of all humanity. But you can start with yourself, transform and change through exercises, through practices. Or you can try to carry all of humanity on your back. I can tell you right away, it won't lead to anything good.
Here's a continuation of the question. What energetic relationships between generations exist from the perspective of extrasensory perception?
Between the mother and child, there are energetic channels, threads, through which informational processes and impulse influences are transmitted, energetic ones, through which you can gain access to information and each other, regardless of distance. And mostly these threads break only at the moment of death, and even then, not for everyone. If there is a very strong psychological dependency on each other, well, from the mother to the child or the child to the mother, this can still exist for some time, even after the death of the physical body. Not forever, of course, not forever. At some point, a person does eventually die completely, both physically, energetically, and as a form of consciousness. You can focus on a point. There are connections, energetic ones, between relatives, but it's not all so straightforward there. They may exist, they may not, these threads connected. There is definitely a connection between a father and a child through these energetic threads, and it doesn't matter whether he knows about the child's existence or not. These connections still form. Because you can't deceive the subconscious energy. We are all perceptive on a subconscious level, so we are well aware of the existence of our children, even if on the physical level, on the level of thought. This hasn't manifested, meaning there is no such information.
Is there any point in memorial services in that case? I mean, if you say there is a connection.
Well, it's all very individual. I have observed people who completely fell apart right at the moment of the physical body's death. I have observed people who, after the death of the physical body, remained conscious in their energy body for some time, alive for a week and a half. I know of the existence of people who can remain alive in their energy body for centuries after the death of the physical body. This is actually a rhetorical question. What is it needed for to achieve what? Well, if you want to celebrate, then go ahead and celebrate. But why wait for someone's death if you can celebrate right now? If you want to remember someone fondly, then do it right now. Why count down these timelines? For what purpose? Originally, yes, when these rituals were emerging, the statistics were different. But since these rituals were invented, humanity has already changed. And in most cases, when these memorials take place, there's nothing left of the person at all. Just a small black crystal, and that's it, which is unable to perceive these memorials, a thread in full shoes.
Good day, Anton. I have a couple of questions. What to do if sensitivity to energies is lost after powerful practices?
Oh, that's a classic scenario. It's a classic. Why does this happen? Well, it's the same as going to the gym to work out properly. Then the mobility of your body sharply decreases. Why? Because you worked out properly. When you take your energy and push it to extreme limits, then you simply get tired. That means you need time to recover. Your physical body gets tired from processing all of this. Your psyche gets tired of maintaining harmony and balance when you're a whirlwind of energy, and you want to take a little breather. You want to distance yourself a bit from this fire within you that has been released, and therefore sensitivity to energies decreases. It's a kind of balancing protective mechanism. And there's another scenario where you just fall into a level of manifestation where you still don't know how to feel anything. That is when a person starts practicing, they basically start to see energy where it flows with the most difficulty, because that's where the resistance is highest, making it the easiest to notice. Then, over time, when a person has worked with their energy, worked with constraining structures, spasms, illnesses, and blockages, some kind of in their body, their energy starts to move freely and without obstacles. And there appears a feeling that as if you stopped feeling it or started feeling it very weakly, or as if you don't feel it at all. Lost this ability. But in reality, your body has started to function so well that nothing resists anywhere. Nothing gets caught on anything. Nothing presses, hurts, or stings. And there, being in this state, there is only one way to move further, to accelerate even more, to increase the flow of your energy even more powerfully. And then by increasing your power, some problem areas start to surface again, and you begin to feel your energy once more. That's one such moment. There are also other aspects. For example, when a person has practiced very well, I'm just throwing out options now, not to answer this question in a narrowly specialized way, but so that many people who have encountered this can find the right answer for themselves. There's also a scenario where a person has practiced a lot, wonderfully, magnificently, they have amazing energy, everything is on fire, and they were provoked. They were provoked to become emotional, to lose their temper, and to get angry, to explode. He explodes, and this energy is immediately consumed by the surrounding space, and he burns out. And yes, after this explosion, he, as if says that he practiced well, forgets that he got very nervous and draws a conclusion. Well, now I don't feel anything. Yes and no, you just flush the results of your practices down the toilet, and that's it. That happens too.
How to overcome the stability of perception? I can't manage to leave my body into the astral, nor immerse my consciousness into the centers and the gates to see these spaces. It's like there's some kind of barrier in my head. So how do you overcome the stability of perception?
By repetition, multiple repetitions. There's no magic pill here. There's no super secret. It's the same as how a person builds their physical muscles, how a person learns to drive a car, how a person learns to ride a bicycle, how a person learns to roller skate. You just overcome your fears, overcome your doubts. But essentially what happens, multiple repetitions. For example, you're jittery, scared, trembling the first couple of days on roller skates when your legs are all wobbly. But by the fourth time you somehow start rolling, is the same here. So if a person focuses their attention on doubts, on worries, on some kind of walls, those endless ones that no one has ever seen, that's what they end up doing. But if a person says, okay, what needs to be done? Aha, this is what needs to be done. All right, I'll start doing it 1 day, 2, 3, 5, 10. Yes, some people fall out of their body by the evening, some fall out after a week, and some struggle with it for 20, 30 days. But anyone who invests in it and doesn't bend, doesn't break, continues to develop, to continue, to train. They all achieve results. There is no possibility of not achieving results.
How long does a person need to practice on average?
If a person does everything, as I said, within a week.
Will they see results in a week?
Within a week. I've had cases where, for example, a person, mostly men, with such a development of events, they come saying nothing is working for them. And I say, okay, let's start analyzing what you're doing, how you're doing it, how many times you're doing it. And I find out that the person isn't doing anything correctly. I explain to him how to do it correctly, I say. Just follow the instructions strictly. You don't need to think, no improvisation, just strictly by the instructions. The person follows the instructions strictly. Day 1, 2, 3, boom. They get the effect of hand pressure. Aha, now everything is clear to me. And for another month, they can't get out of the body. They come back. I say, again, I can't get out. I say, well, that's because you're improvising. Who found out so far? I say, you're not the first of your kind to come to me. I say, let's recall the instructions. Yes, he can't even remember those instructions, what I told him. So it lasted him 3 days. He got the result, got proud, and started overthinking. He overthought it, and for a whole month, he couldn't get out. I tell him again, look, 1, 2, 3, do it. That's it. Don't overthink. Don't invent anything. He starts doing it by evening. Bam, he managed to get out again. Well, I mean, some people are just like that. Nothing you can do.
What should be done with the blood donated for transfusion? It possesses my consciousness and is connected to me.
Yes. Also, people ask me questions like these from time to time. I respond exclusively to those who aspire to freedom, those whose intentions align with mine. This action greatly hinders the realization of the intention of freedom, very much so. Yes, you are connected to your blood. Yes, it is a part of you. Yes, this blood will be infused into someone else's damaged body, and you will feel all of this. You will connect with all of it. Why are you doing this? Well, it's a rhetorical question, actually. But the very fact of such an action is very, very questionable for people who have the intention of freedom. For those who do not have such an intention, for those who find it normal, and here, for those people who do not aspire to anything more than an average life, yes, please, by all means, there are no problems.
And can this somehow affect a person later, for example, if they donated blood?
Of course.
And the person who received the transfusion, will they, I don't know, create some negative situations?
Well, how negative? You will receive processes that slow you down, which don't even belong to you.
So in any case, there will be an impact, and you will feel it through the situation, through the perception of feeling, right?
Well, look, I think examples like attending, for instance, a funeral. For company, because someone asked you to support a person there, well, can you be completely independent of all that? No, it will still pull you in. That grief, you will still feel it. Visiting a morgue, it can immediately weigh you down. Although, again, you might not be logically connected to the person lying there, but it will still weigh you down. You will still feel it. The same goes for being in a bar. Yes, drinking juice, but the general alcoholic atmosphere will still pull you in. And here, and it gets transmitted through the air practically, and here they take a part of you, insert it into a person who needs it, meaning, obviously, this is a damaged person, and it all starts to flow into you. Well, of course, you will find it unpleasant, all of this. To some extent, you might even feel a kind of internal rejection, a sort of repulsion, although globally, nothing happened.
And can this somehow be adjusted later? For example, through working with energy, if, let's say, you...
Yes, of course, it can all be regulated, but you see, it's one thing when you are embroidering with a loop. Yes, then you put it aside and go, I don't know, to do your own things. It's another thing when you take a hammer and you hit your finger like bam, 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 and then your finger is just hanging there like, hey, can this be fixed? Well, it can be fixed, but maybe you shouldn't be hitting your finger with a hammer. Yes, it can be done. But you need to understand that this is, again, an effort you will need to make to overcome your action, and also to overcome the energy you have now taken on from another person. So, in fact, you will be healing yourself while you are dealing with the consequences of your actions.
A girl writes, I am an artist, and a few years ago I started painting specifically Sri Yantras. Can you tell me what significance the graphic execution specifically has? There are many questions about building a place for practices, as I am directly involved in this. There are significant gaps in the Vastu system. It would be interesting to hear from Anton about this. He mentioned it once. I would be interested to hear about Matramandir. Could you please tell us about it?
Yes, not long ago I held a meeting where I talked about the Sri Yantra, and it is available, this meeting, for a closed club of practitioners. That is, people who come to train with me in a group, to practice. We practice twice a week. They have the opportunity to rewatch this recording. And yes, I talked about the Sri Yantra there. And during that broadcast, people were asking about temple construction, about Vastu. What can be said about this? I haven't built my temple. I don't have it. I am striving for it. I am earning money for this purpose. Sooner or later, I will make it happen. I will have my own real mastery and skill. Right now, without having built it. I can only rely on what I have seen, how my ashram, my teacher, built his temples. Yes, definitely, there are technologies for all of this. Yes, part of this technology is described in Vastu Shastra. But if we are speaking as adults, as people who understand energy, who aim to build an energetic structure, not just, yes, according to a book, some structure, but specifically the structure that will work, a person must have extrasensory perception. Without extrasensory perception, even with books, even with knowledge, it is impossible to build anything sensible. This needs to be seen. It's a subtle process. You need to see how energies move. There are many nuances and peculiarities. You can't cram all these peculiarities into your head. You can't extract all these peculiarities from a book. You need to be able to see the movement of energy in space. Only then, with this skill, you have the opportunity to build a structure, even without studying your soul. And this structure will be very good.
Here is quite a large comment. I will continue to read it to you partially. Anton said that he gathers energy. That's where people's memories awaken.
Oh, about the Matramandir, I completely... Yes. Wait, let me tell you a little about it now. First of all, I was there. That is, I went to Oroville when I lived in India. I was in Oroville. I looked at this Matramandir. It's an accumulator of human consciousness. People who come under the influence of that tradition, that teaching, they give some part of their consciousness, their energy, give it to this sphere. Inside, there is a crystal sphere, which is the accumulator of this energy. This energy is accumulated not just for the sake of it, it is accumulated for Sri Aurobindo, who continues his existence without a physical body. And this is his source of life. That is, as long as this structure operates, he is lively, full of energy, and healthy.
Also, in the continuation of the commentary, it is written that there people awaken memories of past incarnations. I would like to know about the construction site, how it is chosen, and if there is already one in mind.
Of course. The construction site is chosen specifically. I don't have anything in mind yet. I continue to travel. I continue to visit various parts of our planet. And where I would like, it's already occupied. And where it's not occupied, I wouldn't want to. Ha 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 ha. You see, all these stories, they are just words. There is a wonderful person, Amma, also Indian, a practitioner. But there are so many legends, so many different stories around her, that when met her personally, well, as personally as you can, she also hugged me. I saw how it all looks from the inside. Where the story came from, that in each person's own language, something sacred says that it's not there. She doesn't say that. More precisely, she speaks in every language, but before you approach her, they will ask you 150 times what language you speak. They will ask you 150 times what your first and last name are, what your name is. Well, you can just see with your own eyes that as you approach her, people run up to her and whisper who approached her, in what language. Well, I mean, it all looks so unserious. Therefore, for me, as an energy practitioner or as a person with abilities, I basically have no questions. It's just customary there to create these tales, to create these unreal images. I mean, she has amazing energy, she has a fiery heart. Well, why this spectacle needed to be staged, I don't understand. The same goes for this Oroville and Matramandir. Oh, everyone there. Well, not everyone, a couple of stories that then turn into everything. And I am 100% sure that those people who were able to perceive their parallel lives there, not the past and future, but the parallel self, because everything happens simultaneously, these people would perceive them perfectly, just if they sat somewhere on a mountainside and meditated. That's all. There is no magic in Matramandir. On the contrary, there is a parasitic system that exploits people.
There is no place in mind anymore? For you, right? There was, but now it's occupied, you said.
It's for my house, for practice. I also want to build a house for practice. I also need this mechanism to accelerate practice. But I'm not going to build a Matramandir. I'm going to build exactly the place where one can practice. And Matramandir is an accumulator of consciousness, although both can be called a temple.
And how to choose a place? Should it just be an energetically strong natural place, or what does it depend on?
So how do you choose it? You travel to various areas that your heart is drawn to, see what is already built there, and observe how the energies flow there. And in the most beautiful, highest quality places, there is already definitely some religious structure. You just say, well, not this time. You move on.
So here is a continuation of the question. Regarding Sai Baba, I also really want to hear Anton's opinion. I heard that there is a vortex in his ashram that collects karma. People cry after that. So let's talk about Sai Baba.
People are generally prone to crying, to be honest. I didn't make it to Sai Baba. Every time my whole being turned upside down when... While in India, I received signals that it would be good to visit him. That is, my soul didn't... The trip didn't sit well with me. But at the same time, I talked to other practitioners, to people with vision who had been there. Definitely, once again, I have no complaints against him as a practitioner. He's a very strong practitioner. But the way he has structured his temple, the processes that are initiated there, personally, I don't want to be there. I don't see any reason for me to be there. At the same time, the space he has created there now encourages some serious soul-searching experiences. Yes, people there can realize much more deeply than in their everyday lives. But all of this doesn't happen for free. People who have these experiences there, who gain access to this space, they pay for it. And sometimes not with money.
Well, for example, what could it be?
With their knowledge, their energy, their resources.
So they drain energy from them?
I can't say that they drain energy there. In Matramandir, they do drain energy. In Sai Baba's place, everything is done a bit more cleanly. The person gives it themselves. To him, simply, there, in the temple, there are a huge number of attention-grabbing images, portraits of Sai Baba. And every time a person of their own will pours out this stream of their consciousness, then through these speak portals, antennas, it all converges to a single center.
All right. And let's continue further.
This is violence. That's what I wanted to say. That is, there it's by mutual pleasure. Here, there's no need to worry. Now, it might seem like everything is bad everywhere. Yes, energy is being sucked out of you left and right by all sorts of commercials, endless, various shows, an infinite number of brands. This mechanism of parasitism is self-evident. Even people periodically parasitize each other. A child parasitizes their mother, the mother parasitizes the father parasitizes everyone together. That is, this mechanism of energy exchange is natural for us. It's just that when you aim for a certain goal, it becomes too wasteful for you, too wasteful. If you live aimlessly, yes, what difference does it make? Today you are the parasite, tomorrow you are being parasitized. And the day after tomorrow, your time has come and you find yourself in the grave. Nothing fundamentally changes. But if you have a clearly set goal, you are completely mobilized to achieve this goal. Yes, every drop of your consciousness, everything is taken into account. So there's no need to worry about it, but knowing about it, since the person asked the question, they will now know.
And also here's a question about real rejuvenation. Because it takes time and effort to learn, feel, and implement it. The most practical example, let's say teeth. Is there a practice to grow them?
I had a relative, she's now a relative, in another world, who somewhere around the age of 70 grew herself teeth. And these teeth looked very scary, actually, but it's a fact. It's a fact that I observed. She really grew teeth after the age of 70. So technically such a possibility existed. Technically, in fact, everything is individual. For some, these techniques, these practices will come easily, while for others, it's simpler. Get implants and not worry about it, if having teeth is so important to him. I recently gave the example of Dikul. He is a person who opened a clinic for recovery after spinal injuries, who himself had an accident. He was performing in a circus and fell, crashing onto the platform. He was paralyzed. And then, in some incredible way, he got himself back on his feet, even though doctors said there was no chance. It's not even close. He got everything back on track and then juggled with dumbbells. He opened his own clinic saying, look at what is possible.
And what is his approach method based on? Is it some kind of energy-based approach?
Consciousness, energy work, work of consciousness, attention. So basically, when he was telling his stories about how he did it, I realized that he was intuitively doing the practices that, for example, I know, but I don't know them intuitively. I specifically studied them. It's the work of one's attention. It's redirecting one's energy. It's redirecting one's consciousness towards the restoration of the physical body. But I'm talking about something else. The effectiveness of his method is quite low, despite the fact that it works. Why? Because the person is damaged. It's very rare for them to be motivated. Mostly, it's easier for him to resign. It's easier for him to fade away, to be lazy and whine, than to work hard and fully commit. Therefore, despite the fact that these methods exist, these practices are there and they work. The likelihood that a person will be able to use this practice is not very high because it's difficult. It requires working, constantly breaking oneself, constantly squeezing oneself dry, constantly being in the process 24/7 without any possibility of just giving up on everything. Because if you give up 3 to 4 days pass and you'll have to start all over again. That's it, the wave has subsided.
Where are these practices available?
In my head.
Good day, Anton. After meditation, when I go to sleep, the body falls asleep faster than the consciousness, and I see how the memory of the personality rapidly fades to zero, and the mind starts generating psychedelic images. Then they form into some strange paradoxical plots that impose new identities and memories on you, often quite absurd ones. Then these plots somehow rapidly change until they structure themselves into some unified strange plot. The further it goes, the harder it is to remember, as if it were a dream. When falling asleep, it lasts a couple of minutes and dissolves, along with the ability to perceive and remember. What is this process?
This is a process when a person lacks mobility in consciousness. This is a process when a person's physical, mental, and energetic aspects are not sufficiently connected. This is a process that I can describe as prolonged disintegration. And in exactly this configuration, if nothing is done about it, death will be the end. That's it. There will be nothing more beyond that. There will be no ability to perceive. You will completely dissolve as a personality. When I was just starting to practice, and I had very deep experiences, profound experiences of perceiving the surrounding reality when nothing remains of the physical body. That is, you don't understand where you are, you don't understand what you are perceiving with, and you don't understand what you are perceiving. When I reached such states, I observed how my personality, how my memory was fading away. I actually forgot who I was. I forgot how I got here. And the only thing that brought me back was actually the presence of the physical body. That is, it was there, somewhere jumping, yes, and I would wake up in it. And with horror, really. Like, it loaded me again, realizing with horror how easy it was to lose my personality. How easy it was to forget that I even started the practice and that this is the result of the practice, not how I got here, but who I am. But how to perceive it. And then it fades, and the space just becomes emptiness around you. But not because it is empty, but because you cannot perceive anything there. This was at the beginning of the practice.
And how to open up this perception? That is, what should a person do?
Well, to avoid finding yourself in such a situation, you need to train here and now and accelerate the mobility of your consciousness. Our consciousness has a body. This body can fade, or on the contrary, increase its luminosity. If this body of consciousness increases its luminosity, accelerates, expands, then you feel at home in these spaces. You don't have this break and fading of perception. When I, having already completed training in that tradition, which is called Shrevidya, when I began to move independently, when during this period I once again set myself the task of reaching these very deep states of perception of reality, to my great pleasure, I was there fully conscious, I was there completely perceptive. I remembered that I am a practitioner. I remembered that somewhere lies my body, which is now unconscious, lying around. I remembered what practices brought me here, who I am, what my name is. I remembered why I was doing this. I remembered my goals. I had the opportunity to compare. So my state is sufficient or insufficient to step where I strive to step. I was fully aware that if I step there right now, I will be overwhelmed because for now my luminosity and this openness configuration still does not match. It is not yet sufficiently formed. That is, I have not yet grown to the opportunity that I want. I was fully aware of all this. I thought, well, okay, not this time, I still need to practice this and that. The body hasn't fully arrived yet, it's still lying there normally. Well, I'll look there at some more features of this world order. Maybe I'll see something that I simply missed before. There's a lot of perception, something additional there, as if I observed some part of the knowledge that was still there, like a question answer with Ashan, a conversation with Ashan. That is, I did not experience it, but simply asked about it, talked about it. I'm like, well, okay, someday I'll see it myself.
And how to divide this configuration?
With practices. With practices. This is practical energy work, the first course. This is shedding the cocoon, the second course. This is the fiery pillar. It's about to happen now. With practices, I did it this way. And I can recommend it because it works. It works for many people, not just for me. This is something I have the opportunity to recommend. I fully understand that there are other traditions and other practices, but I haven't engaged in them. Therefore, apart from what I've experienced, I have nothing else to recommend.
So, let's move on to the next question. Here, too, a woman writes that after the live broadcast on Sri Yantra, she fell ill, yes. The virus hit her hard. The temperature was initially high, then it dropped. Still, after the practice, something happened. Why does the body have such reactions at all? Does it mean the body is not yet capable of processing all these experiences the person encountered?
You know, there's a wonderful word, cleansing. When a person comes to a practice for which they haven't prepared, then in an emergency mode, his entire Goyu triad begins to align with the level of this practice. If a person comes there open, if they truly invest themselves, that is, it essentially compresses a huge amount of time, literally into a few days. And accordingly, everything that would have to be experienced, transformed, internalized, changed, adapted, adjusted, it all compressed right here and now. Naturally, yes, there can be very harsh consequences, but I can only call it a cleansing. Yes, you can stretch the immersion into the Sri Yantra over half a lifetime, and you won't get sick from it as it was. You will grow to that level.
So, should one approach it gradually?
No, there's no such word as should here. Here, it's more about what's convenient for you. I've always been the kind of person who would just jump into any practice with both feet whenever I had the chance. After some practices, I would just crawl out of there, but I enjoyed it. I understood that, yes, the practice was intense beyond my level, not even close. I realized that it had overwhelmed me and completely exhausted me, but I also knew that next time I would be much stronger because I went through it and survived it. So I would jump into such practices that now I look back on my journey and it's a miracle that I survived. But these are just beautiful words, really. When a person is driven, they can't just perish. They simply can't, that's all. But to feel the full weight of entering too quickly, for some, it's acceptable. On the contrary, it motivated me, it ignited me, it was a challenge for me. It threw such a challenge at me. Like, will you survive this practice? And I would survive, and I did survive. But I felt everything quite decently.
So essentially, it turns out if a person doesn't have such extensive experience practice working with energy and they want such intense, rapid, powerful transformations, then they can jump straight into the third course, for example, to Sri Yantra. But if a person is concerned about the consequences, it's better to divide everything into stages and acquire knowledge sequentially.
It's entirely their choice. Some people prefer to move very slowly, but without any upheavals. And for some, if there are no upheavals, then it's not even a practice, it's ineffective. There must be an upheaval. I am like that, for example. Therefore, on one hand, there's nothing wrong with it, but on the other hand, you need to understand what level you are aiming for. After all, this is the pinnacle of the knowledge, of the tradition in which I developed.
Good day, Anton. Thank you for generously sharing true knowledge. It's very valuable. The question is not quite on the designated topics, but it has interested me for a long time. I haven't heard the answer in your broadcasts. What do you know about Reiki? What is this energy, really? Where does it come from for those who are initiated? Is it worth consulting Reiki healers?
Well, it's worth consulting. If you don't want to do anything yourself or understand anything, you just need to look for true Reiki practitioners. Representatives of Reiki, not just a sign printed somewhere on the internet. It's the same as with Christianity. There are Christians who wear a cross, and there are Christians who follow the commandments. It's not the same at all. The same goes for Reiki. The energies that the masters manifest there, masters, they really exist. But the hierarchical structure and teaching system established there implies an endless chain of payments for these energies. When I was studying in the temple, that a person from the Reiki sphere came to our group. Ashram tells me, well, show us what they teach you there. Manifest the energy, let's see. And the person started to manifest them. And suddenly it turned out that all the energies he bought, I might be mistaken now, but I think it was $5,000 per energy. He paid to have it passed on to him. But I might be wrong, it was a long time ago. Maybe $2,000, $1,000? Well, something like that price. And all the energies he manifested, which were passed on to him over the years, he paid for each energy, money. We, in our group, in our tradition, studied on the first day, that is, these energies are real, these states are real. These practices are real, where they are genuinely passed on. But in my first energy course, there is more than in all of Reiki combined. That's all.
I think that's a complete, detailed answer. I thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to unlock your inner strength and learn to manage energy? The course, Power of Consciousness 1. Practical energy will provide you with tools to improve health, develop intuition, and gain a deeper understanding of the world. Join and start changing your life right now. Link in the description.